What's up, guys? ADCZ here. Welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. And with a new ban list dropping, we are still updating the decks that got a boost from ban list. And today we're back with Domain Monarch. I know it hasn't been such a long time since we did the last Domain Monarch deck profile, but we got Aether back at 3. So I think it's worth talking about how this changes the playstyle of the deck and how much better it got with the new ban list. Unfortunately, Pantheism is still at 1, but I have a strong feeling that Konami gives us one piece at a time. So maybe in 2 ban lists from now, we will have Domain Monarch in full power, and if Pantheism comes back at 3, then I'm pretty sure Monarchs can be considered a really good anti-meta pick for any kind of format, because locking out your opponent's extra deck will be relevant in pretty much any kind of format nowadays. So let's start with the deck. 3 Ether, easily the best monster in the deck. Erebus is not the best monster. She is, because she's the disruption of the deck. You don't really have any other way of interacting with your opponent other than locking them out with Domain. But Aether, you can banish a spell or trap, Monarch spell and trap from your graveyard to tribute summon her during your opponent's turn. Comboing her with Stormforth, you can tribute your opponent's monsters, and you can summon Kuraz. If the matchup favors it, then you can pop cards your opponent controls with Kuraz, or you can pop your own to dig through deeper into your deck. So that's why Aether is really important. She also gives you a turn 1 play, because you can summon another copy of herself from the deck, and during the end phase it will come back to your hand. So you don't really need to start with Erebus. And having more Monarchs in the deck makes the deck inherently more consistent, because one of the problems that this deck has is that it needs to get away to have the field, the tribute fodder, and a Monarch in your hand. That's why the deck is notorious for breaking a lot, because it kind of leads a lot of cards to function well. And that's why giving us back more pieces helps the deck gets to its win condition faster. That's why 3 Aether makes the deck so much more consistent and much more powerful. And now 3 Erebus, of course, your untargetable spins from hand, deck, or field. So you can do whatever you want. If you summon it first turn, you just spin a card back from their opponent's hand. It will start 5 cards. It's really good going second, because you can break up apart boards. You can chain block with returns, so you can play around negates. And when it's in your graveyard, you can discard a Monarch spell or trap. You target a monster in your grave with 24 or more 100 attack and 1000 defense. You add to your hand. It can add itself. It can add Aether. It can add Thestalos. It can add whatever you want. So if you run out of Monarchs, you can just bring them back from the graveyard and keep having more plays. You need to manage your resources well, though, because these 2 send spells and traps from your deck to the grave in order to activate their effects. So it's very easy to run out of resources and cards to send very early. And unless you close out the game fast, because usually with Monarchs, you get out 3 Monarchs, which is 8400 damage. So that's how you want to finish the game. But if you can't do it very fast, then you might run out of resources easily. That's why you need to keep track of how many cards you still have left in your deck. I play 1 Thestalos. I still like 1 Thestalos. It's a really good turn 1 play, because it can also win you in time. It deals burn. You can take whatever you want from your opponent's hand. It's not a random spin like Erebus. You get to see your opponent's hand, and you get to pick which card you want them to discard. So that's pretty good. It's searchable, it's recyclable, and I think it's a really good Monarch to have, at least a 1 of in your deck. 1 Kuraz. I still think Kuraz is kind of weird in this format, especially now that Pure Thunder Dragon and Salamangreat are going to be the most represented decks. These decks are very resilient against destruction, so that's why I think Kuraz is just a tool to give you more cards. It's not as much a disruption. Aether and Stormforth are the disruption for the deck. It can work against decks like Sky Strikers, who pop a multi-roll. It can work against Pendulums to pop Electromite. Yeah, against such decks can work, but it's not always good. So that's why I don't think it's worth running more than 1. You have access to it whenever you want with Aether. It's not a card you want to summon, because it cannot attack the turn it is summoned. So during your turn, it gives you more cards, but it doesn't give you pressure. So I think that's why one of the big weaknesses of this card. So that's why I think it's okay at 1. It's just a card you need to have access to because of Aether, in case it can work. And the last Monarch card I play is Majesty's Fiend. It's a searchable card because it has the stats of 24,000 for Monarch, and against certain matchups it can completely lock them down. Against Orcust decks they can't do anything, Salamangreats can't do anything. Thunder might be able to, because they play some cards that can get rid of the Majesties by just summoning a big monster on the field. So Maybe it's not the best against Thunder. It can work against Thunder. It's not a good card going second, of course, but if you can establish it going first, then you're pretty much good to go, and you will be able to floodgate your opponent out of the game. And I played Tooling Slayer. I showcased this card during the last deck profile. I still think it's a very good card. It's the better option of the red layer that people used to run back in the day when they're playing Monarchs. It has the exact same effect as a red layer. You can just special summon if you have no monsters, but it also can discard cards from the hand and pop back row. So that's pretty good because pop back row is a problem against Monarchs. If you're playing against Salamangreat deck and you have like Rage or Roar back in the back row, you have to get rid of it before you commit to your play, because in this deck, if your EDA gets negated, then you pretty much not be able to summon a Monarch, because you won't have the extra normal summon with Eidos, so that's why you need to play around back row before you go through. And if you have Return and you don't have a Monarch, it can act as a Monarch, because you can summon Idia, summon Eidos, and tribute your Eidos to summon Linkslayer, and then you will get a search with Return. You will set your Aether, and during your opponent's turn, you can summon Aether, and you can start your engine going. So it has multiple uses in this deck. For the Squires, 3 Idia, get your Eidos from the deck. If it goes to the grave, you get add one of your banished Monarchs Pleasant Traps. Usually it's Pantheism, but if it's super late game, Pantheism giving you more trides is not that optimal, so you can just get back your Stormforth and keep clearing your opponent's board. And 3 Eidos. I still think 3 Eidos is mandatory. People play 2, but Eidos can work the same as Idia, so it's, if you have Domain, you can just lower the level of your Monarch, and you will bring it out with 1 tribute. And also Eidos, you can banish it from the grave to special Idia, so from the grave, so you can get another Eidos. So it's very important to have the exact amount of Idia and Eidos, so you can do this 3 times. You can first Idia, and then you bring out 2 other Idias, have an Eidos in the deck to special summon. And if you run 3 Idia with 2 Eidos, you can only use Eidos' effect once. You can use it again, but you won't have anything to summon from the deck with Idia, so that's why I think you need to run 3 Eidos. And 3 Ice Blossom. I was considering Nibiru for the deck, but sometimes Nibiru can be dead, and in a format where we don't know exactly how it's going to fold out, maybe Lunalights are going to be really good. I don't think Ibli is going to see any play because Memory got banned, so there's not really any use for Ibli anymore. So that's an out to Nibiru that doesn't exist anymore. But I still think, at least for now, that the format is still pretty much not settled. Just run the most generic card that will be live against all matchups. Maybe Altergeist will be really good, maybe Subterrors will be good, True Draco, and I don't want to run a 3-off in the deck that could be dead against some certain matchups, especially in a deck that can brick very, very easily. Now for spells, 1 Pantheism. Again, I hope in 2 lists we will have 3 copies of this card. The OCG has 3 copies, the deck doesn't do much, so I think it's very safe to say that the deck is not going to do any broken stuff. We have a lot of better control decks, and like Altergeist, True Draco, Subterrors, they can just get to their win condition faster and lock your opponent out. So I think it's okay to get back 3 Pantheism. But again, you can discard a card, draw 2, banish it, reveal 3, your opponent chooses 1, you get to your hand, so it's +1, and it gets you to whatever you need. 3 Tenacity, search any card, any spell and drum in your deck, you reveal your Monarchs, and you search. Usually early you'll search your Pantheism. If you're going second, you can search your Stormforth to clear boards. Really good. And it's an activation once per turn, so if your opponent negates it, then you can activate a second one if you have it, so that's pretty good as well. 3 Return, it doesn't contract with the deck. You don't run an extra deck because this is Domain Monarch, not any kind of extra deck Monarch, and you can search during your turn. Now with 3 Ether, you can search more consistently during your opponent's turn as well, so it makes the deck have a lot more power. That's why I said that Aether not only boosts the power of the deck, it boosts the consistency of the deck as well, and Returns one of the main reasons. And one of the best plays with Returns that can chain block with Erebus. You can put Erebus Chainlink 1, and then Return Chainlink 2, and you can play around the gates like Jackal, Vortex, Crystal Wing, and whatever else they might have on the field, so that's pretty good. And because Agar Pain is banned, Abyss, we will not see Red Dragon Arts from Abyss anymore. They don't have the ability to pick and choose which card to negate. So they have to negate the last thing in the chain link, so that's why I can chain block against pretty much any negate that will exist right now. 3 Stormforth, again, really great. It's really good going second. It's really good going first as well. With 3 Ether, you can use it as a disruption to tribute your opponent's monster, and sometimes against some decks, that's pretty much enough to win you the entire game. 3 Domain, Of course, it's what the deck is named after. It lowers the levels of the Monarchs. It boosts them when attacking, and of course, the best effect, which is why it's here for, since you don't have an extra deck, and when you control a Monarch, then your opponent cannot summon from the extra deck. So that's pretty much the main win condition of the deck. Now I play some generic spells that boost the consistency of the deck. So I play 1 for 1 to get Idia from the deck. If you use 1 for 1, you can summon 2 Monarchs in a turn because Eidos gives you 2 normal summons. Since you used 1 for 1, you have not committed your normal summon for Idia. So you can summon Erebus, spin a card, and since Erebus is a tribute summon monster, you can just tribute him to tribute summon Aether, and Aether will get you another monster from the deck. And you can push for damage, and during the end phase, you will probably have summoned a second Aether, so you will get it back to your hand, so you can have interruption during your opponent's turn, so that's pretty good. Rhoda, because Idia is a warrior, you won't have access to your Idia as fast as possible, because like I said, you need a tribute fodder and a Monarch. That's pretty much what the deck is aiming for every single game. Foolish Burial, usually you need to send Erebus with this. It's another copy of a Monarch, because you can uh, discard any card to add back Erebus from the grave. So that's its main use, but late game you can also send Idia from your deck to add back one of your banished spells and traps. If you need a Stormforth, if you need a Pantheism, draw more cards, depending on what you need in the scenario, you can get whatever you want. 1 Foolish Burial Goods, just one, in case you don't have access to your Pantheism early, you can just send it to the grave to try to give you the card you need. And since you're playing all 3-ofs, if you need a certain card like a Stormforth or a Tenacity, you can just reveal 3 of the same copy and it will guarantee add to your hand. Or if you already have access to your Pantheism but you don't have access to your Prime Monarch, you can just send your Prime Monarch and it will give you tribute fodder. So that's pretty good as well. And an Upstart, because again, you need as much consistency as possible. The less cards you play in the deck, the more consistent it is. The 1000 life points gives to your opponent doesn't matter all that much, because if you have domain on the field, your monsters will be boosted when attacked or when attacking, so it doesn't really matter. And it's not a deck that can consistently OTK. It doesn't even try to OTK, so it doesn't even contradict with any kind of the strategy. And the last card in the deck, 2 Prime Monarch. I still think it's not worth playing at 3 as long as Pantheism is at 1, because seeing it in your hand and not having a way to get to Pantheism means that it's pretty much a dead card. Its only use being in the hand is during the late game, because it has also a continuous trap effect, where each turn you can shuffle back 2 Monarch spells and traps into the deck and draw a card. That's pretty good if you run out of resources, but early game it doesn't serve you any purpose, especially if you don't have a play, because you will not have 2 Monarch spells and traps in the graveyard. So I think if we get Pantheism to 2 and hopefully to 3, maybe you can bump Prime Monarch up to 3, because it gives you consistent tribute fodder if you can consistently discard it to the graveyard. So, yep, I think that's how you should approach Prime Monarch for now. It's still a great card. You also have access to Foolish Burial Goods. You send it whenever you want to the grave with Erebus and Aether. But again, it can be a brick, and this is what you want to minimize in this specific deck. So, yep, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully, we'll bring you another update next list, and hopefully again during the list afterwards with a full power Monarch deck profile. Finally, and some people ask me why I don't run Monarch's Erupt. I don't think it's worth playing a card that could potentially be a brick again if you don't have a play, if you don't have a Monarch on the field. And if you use your deck's win condition, if you get to it, which is the domain lock, your opponent is not going to have any main deck monsters that are going to deal with your domain anyway. So I don't think it's worth negating monster effects if you can just lock your opponent out of the extra deck, because the powerful and dangerous effects come from the extra deck. So that's why I don't run Monarch's Erupt in this deck. So once again, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.